Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Good to see you all. We'll get started in just a few. Welcome. Everyone, please be sure to mute your mics, please. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. We have some more trickling in. We'll get started in just a few. I hope everyone is having a great day so far on this lovely Monday. Right. Okay, we'll get started momentarily. Thank you. All right, everyone. We're waiting for just a few more participants and we'll get started shortly, okay? All right, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, welcome. We are really excited to see your wonderful faces and um, all of the businesses that decided to join us today. I am going to let Ms. Pam Green start us off.
Once again, welcome you all to the Richland County Office of Small Business Opportunities Workshop. Throughout the year, we'll have a series of Lunch and Learn, and this is the first of a number of different series that we'll be offering throughout the year, along with several other in-person workshops that we'll offer that are for the benefit of you all as business owners. I just want to quickly just talk about our office and introduce our team. We did have the slide up there before. Of course, I'm Pam Green. I'm the manager with the Office of Small Business Opportunity. LaSasha Berlon is the business development and outreach coordinator for the office. And then we have Margaret Jones, who just joined, who is the certification and compliance officer specialist for the office. We are a small but mighty team. that's here to advocate and support small businesses. And the mission of this office essentially is to advocate for county contracts for businesses such as yourself. So we do this by way of talking with the different departments of Richland County. We do this by offering workshops such as this to make sure we're filling in any gaps. And then we ask for you to let us know what's going on with you guys in your businesses, what you're seeing, where we need to be of support and advocacy for you as it relates to contracting. And then we try to connect you with other collaborative partners. So we don't just think strictly Richland County, it is the city, it is the state, it is federally that we're all connected. So just remember, our office is all about advocating, connecting, making sure we qualify you, and then setting you up to compete on a global basis. We're excited about the workshop today, so I just want to say a great welcome. We will tell you a little bit about our SOBE program at the end, but I want to go ahead, make sure we're able to give our special facilitator enough time today to talk about the information that it does have. So I will switch the mic on over to LaSasha, and thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Pam. And again, welcome everyone. Really excited to see you. My name is LaSasha Berlon, and as Pam stated, I am the Business Development and Outreach Coordinator for the Richland County Office of Small Business Opportunity. And today we have a wonderful guest, Mr. Peter C. Gibbs. He is the President and CEO of Foundation Surety and Insurance Bonds. So just real quick, I want to go over some brief housekeeping items. Okay, just so that we make sure we have smooth sailing on today's event. So please make sure to keep your mics on mute throughout the presentation. Please drop your name and the name of your business in the chat, just so that we can all see you and you have that visibility. I would also ask that you I recommend that you strongly take notes for this event, just to make sure that, if you have any questions throughout, you can save that for the end, because we will have a Q&A session. Okay, and once we open up the Q&A, please be sure to use the raise your hand feature so that we see that you have a question, okay? And we will go to you. Okay, and then, like I said, the chat box will be addressed at the end of the webinar for Q&A. All right. And so, like Pam said, I will at the end go over the upcoming events that we have for the month of March with the links, so that you can make sure that you register for those events and mark your calendar for those. And let's now introduce today's lead workshop facilitator. That's Mr. Peter C. Gibbs, President and CEO of Foundation Surety and Insurance Bonds. Mr. Gibbs is the former director of the Office of Surety Guarantees, or OSG, at the U.S. Small Business Administration, or as we all know, SBA, headquarters in Washington, D.C., where he previously managed a staff of over 25 professionals at the organization's headquarters and regional offices. Foundation is licensed in all 50 states. Mr. Gibbs wants to make sure that Foundation Surety is the premier surety bond agency in the U.S., serving all small businesses, including those in the underserved community. And now I turn the presentation over to Mr. Gibbs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I get started, I just want to let everyone know just a little bit of background about me that's not on the presentation that you're about to see. Many, many years ago, when I graduated from college, I worked for a 8A contractor, Wise Construction Company in Dayton, Ohio. And then I worked for a larger construction firm out of New York City. So, I bring to you not only the perspective of a surety company or a former government official, but I've been on the side of most of the businesses in here. When you're small and you're trying to grow, when you're trying to figure out, what do I need as a small business to grow? I would also say that, for the past couple of years, whenever you're on TV, or radio, you hear about this infrastructure bill, right? It's a couple of $1 trillion for construction throughout the U.S. And as a bonding agent, whenever I see that people talk about bonding or talk about these projects, I say to myself, you know, if you're not able to get bonding, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of any of those contracting opportunity. So thank you for showing up, because, you know, if you're a construction firm and you understand the importance of bonding, then you put yourself in a position to take advantage of opportunities. I'm going to share my screen with my presentation now. Okay, give me a second to figure this out. I had everything set up, but now I don't see it.
Do you want us to go ahead and pull it up for you in advance as you need it, Peter?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Next slide. So my objectives today is to, you know, get an introduction about who I am, talk about what is a surety bond, you know, why are bonds important, and then I'm going to tell you about the SBA Surety Bond Guarantee Program, which is a tremendous resource for small and emerging businesses. How to obtain a surety bond. I'll tell you about what an agent looks at as far as underwriting an account, benefits of working with my company, and then I'll give you, you know, my gift to you guys today is some tips that I have for contractors, and then we'll have some question and answer session. The only thing that I ask of you guys is, you know, while we're here today, you know, I don't want you to leave without asking any questions about, I don't care what question it is, any questions that you have about surety bonding. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm sure you're going to get a copy of this presentation. So this is a little bit about me. Like I said, I worked at SBA for about 32 years. The last 18 years, I was the director for SBA's Office of Surety Guarantees. That program is a $6 billion public-private partnership where SBA partners with surety bond companies to help small businesses. Next slide. You can just keep, yeah. So this kind of tells you about some of the my achievements while at SBA. The one that I like to highlight, and you can advance it one more. The one thing that I like to highlight to small businesses is, you know, the default rate for SBA's bond guarantee program was less, and it probably still is about 4%. What does that mean from a small business perspective? That tells me that it's never about the small business ability to do the job, because with a 4% default rate, it means that they're doing a pretty good job. So the only thing that really hinders small businesses is the opportunity to get that project. And bonding is a major hurdle for small businesses. Next slide, please. What is a surety bond? you can click it. Surety bond is a three-party agreement between the surety company, the contractor, and the owner of the project, right? The contractor, the surety company, and the owner of the project. And what that does, it ensures that the contract will be completed, whether it's by the original contractor who receives who's awarded the contract, and if that contractor is having issues and they're put off the job, it is up to the surety company to get a replacement contractor to get that project completed. We are focusing today on contract surety bonds. Contract surety bonds basically means that it is for a specific project that has a start and an end date. Once you figure out this bonding game, you will understand that there are thousands of bonds, but today we're focusing on contract surety bonds. Next slide, please. Why are bonds needed? If from the federal side, any contract specifically for construction that is awarded through the federal government, it is the law that small businesses have a surety bond. Usually it's a payment or performance bond if the contract is $100,000 or more. In many instances, entities require surety bonds. It could be less than $100,000. Although it's not a law at the state, in the county, and the city level, most entities require a surety bond. Next slide, please. So in 1970, SBA and realized that small businesses were having issues getting bonding. So they created the Surety Bond Guarantee Program. And what that does is it has a 80 to 90% guarantee to surety companies. So in the event of a default, if there's a problem on the job, SBA pays 80 to 90% of whatever the loss is on a project. So it entices the surety industry to take a chance on small businesses. And that's what the Surety Bond Guarantee Program does. Next slide, please. How do you benefit? It gives you an opportunity to grow your business, to increase opportunities, and there are flexible underwriting criteria. I want to give you an example of how this works, right? So if you're a small business and you get awarded a contract, let's say it's $1 million. If you go to the standard bonded market, which means that your company have no issues, you have no capital issues, you've been around for a while, you probably will not have any issues getting a bond. But as we know, small businesses struggle to get bonded. So in the standard market says for $1 million bond, if you have 10% liquid cash in the bank, you can get that bond. So on a $1 million contract, if you have $100,000 in the bank, you should have no issues getting a bond. The SBA bond guarantee says to the surety companies, well, we're okay, given that if you have $1 million contract, the working capital requirement is reduced to half of that $100,000, $50,000. And what I've learned in my time working for SBA and just working with small businesses in general, many small businesses may not have liquid cash in the bank, but they may have a business line of credit. So if you have a business line of credit, remember we reduced that working capital requirement from $100,000 to $50,000. Now, if you have a business line of credit, whatever the unused portion of it, that can go towards that $50,000. So in reality, if you have, we've lowered it to $50,000, but if you have a line of credit and you have $25,000 available on that line of credit, the working capital requirement to get that same $1 million bond drops from $100,000 in the standard market to now just having $25,000, and we'll get you that bond. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys, right? So the main thing is, the flexible underwriting requirement allows a small business who does not have a lot of cash to be able to bond that project with less working capital requirement. Next slide, please. So sureties, when they underwrite an account, they look at the capacity, which is your ability to do the work. And, we look at the size jobs that you've done in the past. We look at your personnel, and just how you run your business on a day-to-day. That's going to determine the capacity of your business, for bonding purposes. We also look at the capital, and we kind of talked about that with the working capital requirement. And of course, character is very important. So if you're a company and you're not paying your suppliers, you're not paying your subs, that's considered a character issue, right? And depending on how long ago it happened, if there's a criminal activity, that may impact whether you get that bond or not, right? But the key thing here is, is I don't want you to think that if you had a criminal history or something happened, 20, 25 years ago, that prevents you from getting a bond. So again, it's the capacity, the capital, and the character is what we look at from a surety perspective to make a determination whether we're going to bond that job for you. Next slide, please. Again, benefits of the SBG program is whatever you get in the standard market, you could probably double that if you utilize the SBA bond guarantee. So we talked about the lower working capital requirement. We talked about utilizing the unused portion of a line of credit, and you're able to most likely bond, larger projects if you utilize the bond guarantee program. Next slide, please. To qualify for the SBA bond guarantee is just like qualifying for a loan. You have to be current on your taxes. And really, it's the federal taxes. We really don't pay attention to the state taxes. And even if you owe a tax bill, as long as you have a repayment plan and you're current, then that should not prevent you from getting a bond. The underwriting standards we just talked about, we look at the credit, the capacity, the character. And if you're having difficulties, getting bonded in the standard market, then you qualify. You must be a US-based for-profit business or a legal resident. Next slide, please. This is a very busy slide, but I wanted to just give small businesses an idea of the whole process of getting a bond. But the most important part on this slide is establishing a relationship with a bonding agent. Because when you're looking for bonding, there's a couple of ways to get bonds. Every time you need a bond, you can reach out to an agent, and then the agent will put you through a process to get the bond. But my advice to small businesses is, number one, once you have that relationship with that bonding agent, is that you establish a bonding line, right? What does that mean? That means that, you know, the agent will request like financial statements, your working process schedule, your resumes, confirm your bank balances, and then make a determination. The agent will make a determination with regards to what risk that bonding company would take a look at. You know, one of the biggest issues that I see with small businesses is, you know, when they don't have a relationship with an agent, they're out there, you know, looking for work. And then let's say they get awarded a contract, then they're not in a position to get a bond because maybe they're going after projects that they do not qualify for, or their balance sheet will not support. So it's very important that you establish a bonding line so that you as a small business know what size projects you should go after. An example I like to give people is, you know, whenever you're in a room with small businesses, you know, there's always everyone looking for $1 million project, right? And what I say to small businesses is, you know, I was educated in the Brooklyn public school system, so I'm not really a smart person, but if you get lucky and you get $1 million project, if you have any issues on that project, most likely you will go out of business, right? So if you guys got your phones or a calculator, I want you to add this up for me, right? 250,000, 250,000, 250,000, 250,000. So that's 4 projects at 250,000. Why is that important? I like to emphasize that point because if you have 4 $250,000 projects, and let's say you have issues on 2 of them, your chances of surviving as a business is significantly increased because you got 4 projects going on, as opposed to going after that $1 million project. Hopefully that makes sense to you, right? So I encourage small businesses to go after smaller projects and then grow responsibly so that they can start doing larger projects. And it's usually a very difficult conversation, you know, when clients come to us and we sit down with them and we evaluate their financial situation, and then we tell them, hey, we feel comfortable with you going after this amount. A lot of them, you know, many of our clients at first, you know, they want to go after those larger jobs, but after we tell them, hey, listen, it's not about where you start, it's about where you finish, right? Because the way the bonding world works is, let's say you complete a $250,000 job successfully, then you can go after a $500,000 job. When you finish a $500,000 job, or a couple of them, then the bonding company will have no issues with you going after $1 million job. And once you do $1 million, you know, it's usually doubled as you complete projects. So we have companies that started with us, and you know, they started off doing a $100,000 job, and a couple of years later, you know, now they're doing, you know, aggregate, you know, $2-3 million in projects. So you shouldn't focus on getting those larger jobs. You should really evaluate, have that discussion with the agent, make a determination of what is a good starting point for my company, and then you grow your company responsibly, which means making sure that you have the, you know, adequate financial statements, because your back office and being able to produce documents is very important as you grow your company, right? So the bonding cycle is really, you know, like I said, establishing a bonding line, which means getting together with an agent and determining, you know, what is my single limit? Because when I evaluate a company, I tell them, I say, listen, okay, I think you should go after jobs at 500,000, and then an aggregate, I'll give them like maybe 2 million. And that can grow as you complete projects. The other way to get a bond is every time you need a bond, you reach out to an agent, and then they're going to put you through the same process over and over again, right? So it's very important when you're a small business and you don't have a lot of time on your hand, that you establish a bonded line and you know what your single limit is and what your aggregate limit is. Next slide, please. So what does an agent request from small businesses? You can click it one more time. What does an agent look for? This is a very important slide because this is usually the starting point of your relationship with an agent. The first thing is the contractor's questionnaire, and I'm going to go through each of these. Contractor's questionnaire is usually a 7 to 8 page document which goes over everything about your company. When was your company established? What are your NAICS codes? It's going to ask you about your banking relationship. It's going to ask you about, usually what are the 5 largest jobs that you've completed in the last 2 or 3 years. So everything about your company is going to be in that contractor's questionnaire. We also ask for financial statements for the past 3 years. And I have tax returns on this slide, but I only look at tax returns if you're coming after a very small bond. But if you've been around as a company 5, 10 years, you should be producing financial statements, and you should have the ability to get just a balance sheet and a P&L, whenever you're looking for bonding, because that's what we're going to use to determine, your working capital requirement. We look at the work in progress schedule. So all jobs that you're currently working on, we want to know the contract amount. We want to know what percentage are you complete, because we want to determine, like, what do you have on hand right now as we consider, giving you additional bonding. Business bank statements we ask for is usually the most current because we're trying to confirm the cash that you show on your balance sheet. We're also going to ask you for your personal financial statement. We want resumes of the owners and any key personnel. And if you're looking for a bond for a specific job, we want to know the job cost breakdown, like the labor cost, what your subcontractor cost, your supplier cost. We want to know all those things as we evaluate whether we want to write that bond or not. Reference letters from previous owners is very, very important. My advice to small businesses is every time you complete a project, you should get a reference letter before you leave the job site. Because if you leave, it becomes very difficult for you to get, a reference letter from the owners or the general contractor who you may be working for. The other thing that I say to small businesses is, I don't want you to be like so many small businesses. They sneak in on the job site and they sneak out, right? You should be known on every job that you're working on. You should get to know other subcontractors because it's a networking opportunity, because you never know if they might be looking for the services that you provide. So make yourself, when you're on a job site, make yourself known. Don't sneak in and sneak out, right? If I'm looking at a contractor, and let's say it's a new company, but they've worked for previous general contractors, or maybe a larger company for the trade that you have, I ask for a list of completed projects. And of course, if you have a business line of credit, I need to know, I want to see the promissory note, and I want to see, like, what's the available balance on that line of credit. It's for bonding purposes, it's important as a small business that you do get a line of credit, because it only puts you in a position where you're able to, in case there are issues with payment, some entities are slow payers, but you still are required to pay your subs. You're still required to pay your subcontractors, and that's what the line of credit does. You utilize that to help you in case there's a slow paying general contractor or owner of a project. So these are the things that as an agent that we look at to make that determination as to whether we want to support you as a small business to get that surety bond. Next slide, please. There are fees associated with bonds. My company and we don't charge, there's no cost for a bid bond, but I do know that there are some agents who may charge an application fee for a bid bond. But from our company, we don't charge anything for a bid bond, and if you need a bid bond, then we will FedEx that to you overnight so that you have the bid bond, so that you can present if you're bidding on a project. If we decide to utilize the SBA bond guarantee, there is a 0.6% of whatever the contract amount goes to the SBA, and the premium for the bond is usually, for us, we charge 2.5% for new relationships. So all in on for a contractor, you'll be paying about 3.1% to get that bond. What I like to tell small businesses, or just construction company in general, is if you have a relationship with a bonding agent, let's say you've been around for 10 years, and from the first time you got a bond from them, you were paying 2.5%. And you've been around for 5 years, and you've completed multiple projects, you got bonded, and you never had any issues, no claims issues, then if you're paying 2.5% 5 years later, you probably need a new bonding agent, right? For us, after like 2 or 3 bonds, we will reduce the premium to 2%. And then ultimately, we want to continuously lower the rate for the contractor. But there are things that goes along with that. If you started off with an in-house financial statement, and now you're getting a compilation or a reviewed financial statement, then the rate will be reduced for you as a contractor. And the other part is, whatever the premium is, whatever you're paying for the bond, that should be included in the first draw that you make for that project that you're on. So you should be able to, you're going to recoup that bond fee after the first draw that you submit to the owner, right? Next slide, please. So for our company, and this is for any agent who is familiar with the SBA bond guarantee program. Like I said earlier, you should be able to obtain double the amount of bonding capacity that you would get in the standard market. We make quick decisions. If we get a completed application, we can turn around a bid bond the same day. If a contract is awarded, it'll probably take 2 days because we have to wait until we get paid. Especially the SBA fee has to be paid up front before you get that bond. So once we confirm the cash, then you get the bond issue. Like I said, there's lower working capital requirement in the standard market, and the SBA limits just went up last week. If it's a federal project, it's the SBA will guarantee projects up to 14 million for federal projects and 9 million for non-federal projects. Even though those limits are 14 and 9, the average bond that we do as a company is around $3 million. And like I said, we count the unused portion of the line of credit towards the working capital. My firm, Foundation, we're the #1 surety agency who utilizes the SBA bond guarantee program for the past 2 years. We've been around for 2.5 years, and in year 1, we became the #1 surety agency utilizing the SBA bond guarantee program. We're a minority-owned company. We're licensed in all 50 states, and we partner with the #8 surety company in the country called Merchants Bonding. And I'm a little different than most agents. I have in-house authority. A typical relationship with a bonding agent and a contractor is the contractor will submit those documents I told you about, and then usually the agent would have to send that information to the surety company, and then the surety company says, hey, we're okay with doing this deal or issuing the bond. I have in-house authority. If I think it's a good deal, I don't go back and forth with the surety company. I can make a decision in-house, and that's a huge competitive advantage that we have as a company, right? Next slide, please. So I came up with this list, and like I said, this is a gift for you guys. When I was working for SBA, I would travel the country and I would meet with many small businesses. And when I heard the issues that these small businesses were having, so I came up with these 10 tips for contractors, right? So hire an accountant as your first full-time employee. Why is that important? It's important because if you're a firm and your back office is messed up, you probably will not be in business very long. I was the first employee for Wise Construction Company. And, I'm not an estimator. I'm not a project manager, but I was able to help keep their books in order so that they were able to get the 8A certification. They were able to get, loans from banks. If your back office is messed up, you're going to have some issues. Establish and maintain a good banking relationship. I mean, that goes without saying. I come across too many small businesses who don't have a good banking relationship, or they go from bank to bank to bank, and that is usually not a good way to run your business, because they probably, you probably have a hard time getting a loan or even a bank line of credit. So I say, make sure that you have a good banking relationship. Concentrate on one trade and master it, okay? Small businesses, I was at an event last week and I met a couple of small businesses, and I said, so what do you do? We do everything. And what I would say to you is you should focus on one trade and master it, right? Start small and gradually grow your business. That's what we do with all our clients. We meet them where they are and we come up with a plan and we help them grow their business. Of course, build a good surety relationship with an agent. Just like you have a banking relationship, you want to make sure that you have a surety agent as part of your team, because you want them to advocate for you so that you can get the bonds that you need. When you start making a profit, don't jump into areas that you have no knowledge of. And everything that I'm telling you, I'm not making it up. But we have clients. I can think of a client in West Virginia when his company started doing well, he went and bought an airplane, right? That's not a good look from a surety perspective, because surety companies want you to keep money in your business and run your business like, everything that's in your business should be for your business, and you shouldn't be out here doing other things that's not related to your core business. That's a big negative from a surety perspective. I am not a fan of joint ventures. And I know that it's usually, I cannot tell you every event that I go to. I was at the Department of Transportation event a couple of weeks ago, and there were a couple of panel people, and their advice to the small businesses, like, well, if you're looking for a job and you don't think that you could do it, then you should joint venture with someone, you should team with someone. And what I would say to you is, you should grow your business responsibly on your own, right? Because I don't care what anyone tells you, because I hear everything. I've heard everything. People will say, you're going to make 30%, you make 30% on a project. I'm not saying that that's not true, but I would say that it rarely ever happens, right? There are statistics, there is data that says construction companies make about 14% profit on a project. That's the average. So if you have a teaming arrangement or a joint venture, so now you're splitting 14% by 2, right? In the best situation, 50-50, 7-7. But from my experience, many times the small business does not get half of whatever the profit is. So now, you're making, less than 5% on a project, and you do not want to be in that situation. There is a business that I visited, an African-American business in the Savannah area, who was one of our clients. And they've been around for 60 years. And most of what they were doing were joint ventures and teaming arrangements. And they were not able to grow as a business because they weren't making that much of a profit for the company. So in order for them to be our client, I basically told them that, we're not going to support them if they got into these teaming arrangements and joint ventures, because I've seen the end result of those situations, and they rarely ever work. But if you do find yourself in a situation where you want to do a joint venture, you want to make sure that you do your due diligence on that company, and you know everything about that company, including seeing their books and records, right? Because if you don't know how well that company is going, then you're probably going to find yourself with some issues. Know your competition and upcoming contracts. The other thing is for 8A contracts. When I was at SBA, I was part of this. It's called UMCC, Underserved Markets Coordinating Committee. And one of the things that I was always amazed at is, most firms who get that 8A certification, they don't really get projects until year 3 or year 4, right? You have a lifespan of 9 years, and the first, if you did not plan properly, you find yourself in a situation where the first 3 or 4 years you're trying to figure things out. So what I say to you is, before you get certifications, especially the 8A certification, that you have a very good idea of how it works. How do I get jobs? What is SAMS? Figure that stuff out before you go and get an 8A certification, because you don't want to be like many of these companies where they pay these consultants, $10,000, $15,000 to help them get an 8A certification. and then, they're not in a position to get any progress because they don't know what's going on and they haven't planned properly. So before you get decertification, make sure you understand the landscape of what you're getting into. Diversify your portfolio to include private and government contracts. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Next slide, please. So this slide talks about things that you as a business can do to help your situation that should not cost you a dime. I'm gonna give you an example. As agents, we get hundreds of applications. If you don't submit a complete application, it just slows down the process. So you should take the time, and whenever you submit an application or forms that have to be filled out, make sure that it's accurate and make sure that it's completely filled out. That doesn't cost you anything, but it will put you in a better situation to get bonded, right? Don't guess. Make sure that you consult with your agent. If there's something that you don't understand, consult with an agent. What I like to say to small businesses is, don't listen to they, right? There are a lot of people out here who profess to be professionals on things, and unfortunately, businesses, listen to what they say, but they're not the expert. So don't guess, consult with your agent. I'll give you a perfect example. There are people out here who say, well, you can't get bonds if you have a criminal record. Well, that's not true. We talked about that earlier. You can't get bonds if you haven't been around for 3 years. That is just not true. But this is what people put out there to small businesses, and small businesses believe them. So again, there are professionals out here. All you have to do is call, ask them a question, and get the answer from the source and stop listening to they. Respond and communicate with your agent timely. So if someone calls me and they say, hey, I'm looking for a bond for a $500,000 project, and I sit down with them or on the phone and I say, listen, this is what I need. And then you don't respond to me, until a month or 2 months later, your chances of getting that bond is going to be decreased, right? So what I would say to you is respond and communicate with your agent timely. That doesn't cost you much, right? Work with a construction accountant. Construction accounting and regular accounting is totally different. Make sure whatever accountant you work with, they understand what is needed as a construction company, right? Again, build a relationship with an agent. That's extremely important. Don't wait until the last minute to submit a bond. And like I told you earlier, establish a bonding line. And you want to make sure that your agent advocates for you. And you also want to make sure that your financials are up to date. I have a client in South Carolina who came to us looking for a bond, and they were using an accountant from I guess they found them on the internet. I believe they were in another country, and I guess they thought that they were, saving some funds, but they really put that company in a bad situation where they have to hire an accountant to fix what they didn't do properly, right? So it's probably going to cost them more money to get their financial situation up to date. The other thing that I would say about financials and taxes, stuff that works outside of construction, you can't apply those same rules to construction. Example, many small businesses, when it comes to taxes, they want to get an extension, right? So the taxes are due in March, and they get an extension to September, right? So now you want a bonding company to give you a bond without current financial statements. So now they have to rely on, from a taxes perspective, they have to rely on taxes from a year before. So don't put yourself in that situation where your financials are not up to date. And if you're using QuickBooks or whatever accounting software packages, make sure you have the ability to print out a balance sheet or profits and loss statement just by pressing a button, right? Again, from a bonding perspective, it is extremely important that your financials are up to date. Next slide. So before we get into the questions, there's a couple of points that I want to make. And that is, for small businesses, we get into the situation where we're not up to date with our information, and you get an opportunity and you're not in a position to take advantage of it, right? So that's one thing. But the biggest trap that I see small businesses get into is, let's say they get an opportunity, they're a sub or they're a small GC or whatever, and the GC says to them, don't worry about bonding, you can be under our bond, right? That is the worst situation that you can be under, because now let's say you have a relationship with a general contractor, and for like 2 or 3 years, you're getting projects from them, and that relationship is severed, good, bad, or indifferent. But as a company, that you've done projects, $1 million, $500,000, and now you want to go out there and you want to get your own bonding. Well, because you were under someone else's bond, when I look at your situation, you're basically starting from zero, right? Because you were under someone else's bond. So every opportunity that you have to get a bond for your company, you should get it, because what you're doing is you're building the capacity of your business. And that's what's going to allow you to grow as a business. So I'm open for questions.
Okay, if you have any questions for Mr. Gibbs, and thank you so much, Mr. Gibbs, for your presentation. If anyone has any questions, please use the raise your hand feature, and we will select you so that you can ask Mr. Gibbs your question. Thank you.
Sasha, we do have one question in the chat. And the question is bonding only for construction companies?
No, it can be for, if you're a manufacturing company, if you're a landscaper, if you're a professional cleaning company. The main point is you should know the requirements of your contract, and the contract is going to say whether a bond is required. So any bond, any contract that has a requirement for a bond, bond for.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question?
So Peter, I do want to ask a question because you ended with in some cases when the prime would say that you can actually use our bonding.
Right.
And a lot of times our some subs are having to do that. You went through the qualifications and the things that they need to have, but in some of those instances, because they may not have, there may be issues, whether it's related to credit or being able to pay the premiums and all that, that they feel it necessary to have to go up under um, that person's bond in order to be able to do work. So is there any different course of action that these subs can take when they're just they're not able to get bonded? I mean, it could be we hear a number of different reasons why they can't get bonded.
Right.
I get what the best case scenario of all the things they need to do and what they need to present. But in those cases where we've got subs that need to build towards that because they've just had some issues in the past. What do you say to
Right.
that? Yeah.
I mean, listen, I would say, situation, once in a while you may have to do it,
Mhm.
but I would say that if you build that relationship with that agent, then you should be able to get bonding, right? It like for SBA does not consider. I don't look at credit score, right? Because, so credit score, there are these programs. It's called fast track programs, where a company can go to a surety agency and they give them bonding based on their credit score. So they may not qualify. For me, what I do is I look at the company, how long they've been around. I look at the projects that they've completed, and then I make a determination whether I want to give them bonding, right? Without paying attention to the credit score. So I think that there are options. You just have to know. Of course, if you're trying to get a large bond and you don't have financial statements, you probably will not get bonding, right? But for smaller projects, I mean, I just did a bond for $360,000, and I did that with the company just having a tax returns, right? But the problem with a lot of companies is they don't have the financials, and then when you look at their tax returns, and this company had a Schedule C, right? For their business. So it might be difficult, but I think you really, you search around and find a company who's an authorized SBA agent. I work very rarely do I not bond a company. And even if I decide to do the bond, I will tell them some things that, hey, listen, I'll write you this bond now, but these are some things that you have to get done before you come back for another bond. Right? Did that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
And so I want to add that you have to be careful not to get caught up with these fast track programs, right? Because it's based on credit, and this happens almost every day. The fast track limit might be you can get a bond based on your credit for $500,000. Now, if you're a good company and you're doing a great job, most likely someone is going to come back to you and say, listen, you did such a great job over here. Now I have this $750,000 project for you. But you have to get a bond. Now, because that 750 is more than the 500,000, they're going to require that list of things that I shared in the presentation. So all our companies, whether they're trying to get $100,000 bond or a $5 million bond, they have to give me all that information because I want them to be ready when they do get those larger projects, so that they're not in a situation where they're having issues with bonding. And the credit, what we found at SBA is most of these companies who have low credit scores, I'm talking about the companies, it's because of some, illness or something that happened. And so we feel that companies should not be penalized, because they had a low credit score because of something that happened beyond their control, right? We try to make bonding the least of the contractors that we deal with, the least of their worries. We will work with them to try to get them the bond that they need. And like I said, being under someone else's bond, I know it's an easy option, but I would say don't find yourself where every job that you do, that you're under someone else's bond, because for the long run, it's not going to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gibbs. And it looks like we do have a question from Ms. Paulette Cunningham. And Ms. Paulette, you can unmute yourself when you're ready.
Thank you everyone for putting this on. Very, very informative. Thank you, Peter. Wealth of information. So now I want to ask you, how does a small business owner get in contact with your firm? Because you said we should establish a relationship with the bonding company beforehand. How soon beforehand, and how would we get into contact with you? And by the way, I'm in Brooklyn now. Don't bad talk it.
That's where I'm from. You can send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat. So you can check out our website. Yeah, so my email, I just put it in the chat. But good question about, you should know, you should establish a relationship sooner rather than later, right? Because you want to know what you need, or what your limits are, because you don't want to fall in a situation where you're going after jobs that's too large, because bonding is based on your balance sheet. It's not a big secret. It's whatever your balance sheet is. So let me give you the basic formula that surety companies look at. They look at your current assets, right? And then they minus your current liabilities. And whatever that amount is, they times it by 10. And that would be your bonding capacity, right? And then what we do is we look at your work in process schedule. So let's say you have a $3 million capacity, right? And then you have $500,000 in ongoing projects. So that means your available bonding capacity is 2.5 million. That's just one part of it. But then we also take a look at, your history as a company. What's the largest project that you've completed? If you've completed $100,000 project, then I will say I'm okay with you looking at projects at $200,000. It's usually 2 times the size of your largest project that we'll be comfortable with, right? The biggest issue that I see every day is companies they come to us. I just had a call this morning from a company out of Atlanta, and so they're looking for a I think it was like $2.7 million project, and I was like, what's the largest project that you completed? So the largest project that they did was like $300,000. right? So they're not going to get a bond for 2.7 million based on their largest projects completed. But I'm not saying it's impossible. So what I do is, dependent on the company, because I'm going to ask some questions, like, for example, if let's say the company is less than 3 years old, then I would say, so what did you do prior to you starting your own company? Well, I worked for XYZ construction company. So give me a list of projects that you completed at your prior company and the role that you played. So if I see that your company is less than 2, 3 years, or even 1 year, but then you show me that you've been a project manager on $5 million projects, then you put me in a position where I can advocate for you and say, listen, I know it's a new company, but they've only done a $300,000 project, but they've done 5 projects with their prior employer, and they were a project manager or superintendent. So, I will support something like that, right? So that goes back to having that relationship with that agent and them knowing everything about your company. And because I do bonds like that all the time, especially you might have 2 individuals or 1 individual that worked for a large construction company, and then they started their own business, but they have a vast experience with doing larger projects. Then it's much easier for me to feel comfortable knowing their prior history. So hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. And do we have any other questions out there? I don't see any.
What I would say to the audience is, don't feel intimidated. When you have a bonding need, have a conversation with someone like myself, and to see if there's a solution. But you don't want to be in a situation, because what happens to businesses is, like, if you some agencies or surety companies, they'll give you a bond, but they'll take collateral from you, right? Cash collateral, it could be different types of collateral, or they might even suggest funds control, right? What is funds control? Funds control is, let's say, Miss Breland Construction Company was awarded a contract, and I really don't understand, what she's trying to do, the size project, but her balance sheet looks good, her experience looks good, but I'm not 100% sure that her company can accomplish this. So then I would say, you know what? I'll give you this bond, but you have to agree to funds control or funds administration. And that means that she has to agree, if the project is with Richland County, that Richland County, every time Breland Construction submits a pay app, the funds go to a third-party company, right? And then they pay your suppliers, your subs, and then the difference comes back to Breland Construction Company. That's funds control, right? But that's it could be up to an additional point that you would have to pay as a company, right? So you don't want to be in those situations where you have to, they put you under funds control or take collateral, right? Because at the end of the day, for us, the companies that we deal with, we want them, again, to grow responsibly, and we want them to get the entire, whatever profits that they're going to get, that that comes to their company as opposed to having to pay a third party to basically pay your bills for you, and they withhold another 10%. So you might be in a situation where most of these contracts, they're gonna hold back retainage, right? So Richland County might say, hey, until we sign off on this project, we're gonna hold back 10% retainage, right? And then you get funds control where you have to pay a point, and they're gonna hold back another 10% of your money, right? So you don't wanna be in those situations.
Thank you. And we do have one other question from Tavani Brown. You can go ahead and
Hi, Peter. My questions are pretty simple. I just wanted to know, do you have or does your company offer any events or community events or things where we can attend to as well to learn more information about other things? And second, are you guys on social media?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. I speak all over the country.
Okay.
I speak everywhere. We're a family-owned business.
Okay.
My wife has me speaking everywhere. I'm actually speaking tomorrow at an event here in Maryland. We're located in Bowie, Maryland. And I think next week I'm speaking in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We do have a social media presence. You can look us up on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Just look for Foundation Surety Insurance Solutions. We're everywhere.
Okay,
We
awesome.
are the only minority-owned surety agency in the country that has a national footprint.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions before we move to closing out? Okay, I don't see any in the chat, and I don't see any other hands raised. So I'm going to go to Mr. Gibbs's last slide, which has his contact information on there. If you want to go ahead and screenshot that or save it. And he also included his email address in the chat. Okay. And that is his direct contact information. All right. And while they do that, the OSBO office would like to thank you again, Mr. Gibbs, for your insightful presentation. We also appreciate you for providing our audience with such valuable information as we get questions all the time about bonding. So it's such a pleasure to have you. We appreciate you. And then I am going to go over some last items for the office with initiatives, and then our manager, Ms. Pamela Green, will close us out. Okay. All right. And I'm going to stop the screen share. There we go. All right. And if we would just ask our participants to hang tight real quick, just so we can go over what's coming down the pipeline at our office. Right now, OSBO is actively setting appointments with small businesses that qualify for our program to become certified as a small local business enterprise, or as we call it, SLBE, with Richland County. If you are not currently certified with our office and would like to learn more, please contact our office directly or copy and paste the link in the chat box below. I will send that shortly. If you are currently certified, please be sure to always check your email. There's emails that come from the OSBO email address, which is osbo@richlandcountysc.gov, as we do send upcoming projects, events, articles, resources, and community partner information. It is very important to stay connected to get the most out of your certification. Also, please mark your calendars for our upcoming events in the month of March. The links to the registration will be in the chat box. I am going to drop that in there in just a few. On March 13th, we have contracting with Richland County, small business, and the procurement process. Okay, that's going to be March 13th from 10 a.m. to 12:30 with our lead workshop facilitator, Jennifer Ladishkin. She is the director of Richland County Procurement. Okay. And that is an in-person workshop with lunch to be included. The link will be dropped down below. And then we also have the flyer shared on the screen for you there. Feel free to screenshot that. Next, we have on Thursday, March 28th, Ready, Willing, and Able, The Power of Go. Lead workshop facilitator on that is Tori A. Stalker. Okay. And that's Thursday again, March 28th from 12 p.m. to 1:30. It's going to be a lunch and learn similar to how this is set up here. And the registration link will be provided as well. And while I turn this back over to Pam Green, there's our flyer for the Power of Go. Please feel free to screenshot that. Save that on your calendar. It's going to be a wonderful event. And then I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Pamela Green, the manager of the Richland County OSBO office. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sasha. And thank you so much to Mr. Gibbs for the information. I reiterate what LaSasha stated. That's invaluable information for you all as small business owners. One of the things that LaSasha stated was making sure that you stay connected and stay plugged in. So please, please, anytime you have an opportunity to gain knowledge that is going to help to better your business or help to build capacity and make sure that you are sustainable, please plug into these events. We also want to thank our partners with the City of Columbia. Procurement and Contracts was on here as well. We all work together to make sure you as a small business has the information, and we're helping to make you more successful. Again, thank you for taking your time to be with us today. We look forward to seeing you guys on March 13th. This is a very crucial workshop because the county procures a number of goods and services, and it is great to really understand how to do business with us, but also to get some tips on bidding on projects. So thank you again for taking time out of your day to spend it with us. And Mr. Gibbs, thank you so much for your wealth of information. And we look forward to seeing you guys next month. Take care.